Hey everyone, and welcome to Awesome Riff of the Day and How to Play It, wherein we chit-chat for a few minutes about the riff in question, the song and or the guitarist and band who created it, and then I'll show you guys how to play it. Should you not give a toss about my well thought out and beautifully articulated musings on Plug-In Baby, Matt Bellamy, and Muse, and want to get straight to the guitar lesson, the tutorial part of this video should start at about the 6-minute mark. So then, with that out of the way, on today's episode of Awesome Riff of the Day, we're having a look at Matt Bellamy and Muse's 2001 track, Plug-In Baby, and its very cool, classically inspired harmonic minor opening riff. A riff that a poll in Total Guitar magazine named the greatest guitar riff of the 21st century. And I can't bring myself to argue with that one. However, to be completely accurate, I think it's more of a kind of a meandering melody line, really, rather than a riff. But it's a repetition and continuation kind of gives it riff status, I suppose. Regardless, today we're calling it a riff. Good enough for the readers of Total Guitar magazine, it's good enough for me. Now, with guitar rock slipping out of the mainstream in the early 2000s, Muse were one of the very few predominantly guitar-driven rock bands to emerge and find a high level of success within the genre after grunge and nu metal's rise and subsequent fall throughout the decade of the 90s. Led by the highly talented multi-instrumentalist and vocalist Matt Bellamy, Muse pretty much exploded onto the music scene in the early 2000s, driven in large part by not only Bellamy's and the band's tightly crafted songwriting, but also his fantastic Jeff Buckley-like wailing falsetto and inventive guitar theatrics. He was also a highly skilled pianist, if all the rest of it wasn't enough. The bastard. And for a trio, they also put on a hell of a live show, which led them to be the first band to sell out the new 90,000 person capacity Wembley Stadium in 2007. And to just hammer home their popularity at the time, the following night, they did it again. Now, me being a rocker metalhead pretty much my whole life, and as one who absolutely abhorred the rise of nu metal in the late 90s, I didn't have much music to get overly excited about at the dawn of the 21st century. Hard rock, grunge, and metal had pretty much gone underground at this point, and I personally was musically subsisting on a diet of early 90s grunge that I loved and still do, and classic metal like Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, Pantera, so on and so forth. Muse seriously piqued my interest, however, when they hit the scene with their debut album Showbiz in 1999. Now this I liked, this I could listen to. It was like Radiohead but heavier, and they had this operatic grandiosity to their compositions, not unlike Queen. It wasn't metal, granted, but it certainly rocked at times and had a lot of great and interesting ideas held within its 12 tracks. The next couple of albums held on to that interest pretty firmly, and then, unfortunately, they lost me when they sort of changed their musical direction, pulled back on the guitars, and became a bit more slick, synth-heavy, and beat-driven. I don't begrudge them this, however, they grew musically, I suppose, as all artists must. I just didn't grow along with them. I do hear that they've gotten heavy again recently, so I must revisit some of their newer stuff one of these days. Anyway, on to Plug-In Baby, a track from the band's second album, 2001's Origins of Symmetry, my favorite album, with an opening and repeating riff apparently inspired by Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor. One can easily hear the classical influence in this one with its repetitive use of the harmonic minor scale, a scale which when used on a guitar gives whatever you're playing a real classical music vibe to it. Not a scale that I rely on too heavily in my own playing, though I do know it, but it's a fun scale to screw around with now and again, and should you be unfamiliar with the harmonic minor, and should you wish to screw around with it a little bit yourself, this riff is as good a place to start as any. It's the scale that Swedish guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen really brought to the forefront of rock guitar soloing back in the 80s, and he relied upon it heavily in his playing. A style of play that drove and propelled the neoclassical guitar trend basically right into the mainstream during the 80s. Matt, being a classically trained pianist, would certainly be familiar with the harmonic minor, and very cleverly used it to craft this fantastic riff on the guitar. So then, first up, we're going to have a look at the harmonic minor scale in B, as it's the key that this riff is in, and then we'll break it down and teach you first the riff itself and then the rest of the song, as it's just a few chords during the chorus, and then the riff repeats itself a number of times, and that's pretty much the whole song. So let's close in here a little bit and have a look at how to play Plug In Baby by Matt Bellamy and Muse. All right, Plug In Baby by Matt Bellamy and Muse, and we are in standard tuning with this one, and we are working predominantly in the harmonic minor, as I mentioned in my little talk earlier. It's not all in harmonic minor. A couple of times within this riff he switches to a bit of a more of a Dorian flavor, and he also hits the flat 5 a couple of times, which is a little bit odd, but it really works, and I'll point that out as we get to it. But it's got a real harmonic minor vibe and feel to it. So we're going to have a look at the harmonic minor in B right now, and this is it. 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10, 8, 9, 6, 7, 9, 7, 8, 11, big jump here, and then 7, 9, 10. And that is the harmonic minor. You can really feel the classical vibe that has. So the riff, you can play this a couple of different ways. You can down pick the entire thing if you want, or you can alternate pick. All down pick, or alternate pick. I don't exactly know what Matt's doing, but you can do whatever feels comfortable. But that little part there is going to be a little tricky unless you know how to sweep pick, because if you're alternate picking, that's kind of sweeping, but slowly. So here's the riff. That's the opening. 8, 9 of the D down to 6 of the G. And now you're going to repeat that exact thing again, and you're going to add one note at the 7th of the G. And now you're going to go back up to 9 and just go right down the scale. It's like a little scale run. And finish on the 9 of the G. Like almost the entire riff takes place in that little box. That little box there, and he jumps out of it a few times, but you know, get comfortable in that little area there. So we're finishing on the 9 there. Now we're going to do a little trill between 7 and 8 on the B, and then ride back down the G string on the 9, the 7, the 6. And now you're going to start the little scale run again, just like we did at the beginning, but now we're going to start on the 9 instead of the 8 of the D. And finish on the 7 of the B. So up to that point slowly. And now you're going to do another trill on 7, 8, up to the 10 of the G, which is the flat 5 and not part of the harmonic minor. It's a bit of a transition lick here, where he's transitioning into something a bit more Dorian. That little lick there, that's more of a Dorian. That note there at the ninth fret of the B is not in the harmonic minor. It's not in the natural minor. It's out of the Dorian mode. So where were we? Another trill, up to 10, back down to the 7 of the B, and back to the 10 of the G. And then we're into this little ascending lick. Now you can, like I said, you can play this, you can downpick the whole thing, or you can kind of like slowly sweep pick it. Up, 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 down, 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 down. And that is going right up the B, the G, and the D string on the 7th fret, and then grabbing the 9 of the A and then reversing it. Pretty easy. And then you're gonna, when you come back down, you're gonna grab the 9 of the B, pick it, and then pick it again and give it a little half step bend release. And then back off to the 7. And then back up to the 10, that flat 5 again. And then, you know, same as we did before, from the 7 up to the 10, back to the 7. And then you're going to roll that up to the 7 of the G, and then back it up to the, with the same finger, your index, back it up to the 6. And then you're going to drop your middle finger back onto the 7. Kind of like that. Because that puts you back into position to start the entire thing over again. And when you jump back onto that 7 of the G, then you start right from the beginning again. Right from the beginning again. And the second time, after you do this, the second time, you go back into that again as if you were starting over again. And this time you do not continue, you just go 9, 7, 6 of the G and finish on the 9 of the D. So the whole thing, slowly. And that is how you play the riff to Plug In Baby. And now leading into the chorus, he gets up here in an F sharp power chord, and he's palm muting that. And I think he's just hitting the 2 strings, the A and the D string F sharp power chord at the 9th fret. And then he takes off that and he gets this kind of dissonant note going on the D string at the 10th fret. And then into a G power chord, put my plug in, baby. Back to a B, F sharp, G. I think he's just like, just all downstrokes on these power chords here. So G, and I think it repeats this little pattern, G to B to F sharp, I think 3 times. Put my plug in, baby. B, F sharp, back to G, down to B, F sharp, G, B, F sharp, G, and then up to a D. And that's the whole song. And, you know, there's a second chorus, and then he goes back into that again, and there's no solos in this one, so that's pretty much the whole song. I certainly hope you enjoyed that, and that helped you out if you were looking to learn this classic Muse riff, and, well, pretty much the whole thing, wasn't it? I hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world. Take care of yourselves and those around you, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.